It's very exciting. It says we're live, which means we might be live on Facebook. But who really knows? Johnny, what is that backdrop that you have above your head? It's very confusing.
It's the roof of the nave at Winchester Cathedral.
Oh, lovely.
Nice long photo.
It's a very impressive photo. And I'm happy to report. I'm happy to report I can see that we are now on Facebook. So that's lovely. And 9 people so far have tuned in with us. The lower voice turnout of any singing event is clearly
that's pretty good.
9 is pretty solid, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if any of those are tenors, though. That's the real question, isn't it?
Ooh.
Oh, people are coming now, including potentially some people who aren't lower voices. I see Alice is with us. You're gate crashing, Alice, as you've pointed out. It's very nice to see you. Thank you for coming. You're very welcome. It doesn't matter whether you're soprano, alto, tenor, or bass, or anything in between, or lower. You will enjoy this workshop because it's with 4 absolute legends of the lower voices of VOCES8 in Ewan, Chris, Johnny, and Blake. We're in for a real treat. I can see now 120 people have rolled in, so we'll just give everyone another minute or so to gather. Oh, I can see Richard Munro's joined us. Hi, Richard. Bianca is a part-time tenor for today, she's told us. That's very nice.
She could probably sing lower than Ewan and I combined, so.
You think so?
It's impressive.
Yeah. Well, the gauntlet has officially been laid down.
I've heard Bianca. The low B is Bianca.
Oh, and Anne's here as well. I'm so glad Anne Wright, our head of education, is also allowed to gate crash. And Anne, I'm sure, will also be keeping an eye on all things to do with the chat. So if any of you who are tuning in now have any questions today, I think Johnny is probably going to be keeping an eye on the Facebook feed for the next hour or so. So feel free to fire in some questions and try and make Johnny laugh inappropriately if you can. That's always an entertaining part of any live workshop session. It kind of makes us just believe that Johnny's still paying attention, so that's good.
Yeah.
Who else have we got? Oh, George has joined us. That's nice. Also singing some low bass, I hope, today, Georgia. Who else have we got coming to join us? We've got Carol from PA. Nice to see you. Linda, how are you? Very nice to have you with us. Charlie, hello. How are you? From Hertfordshire. Hello from France. Oh, it's great to see people all over the world joining in for this big old sing-along that we're about to do for the afternoon. There's nearly 200 people here now, so I'm going to stop vamping and I think get on with things. The great news is that I'm not going to be talking very much today, but I'm going to hand over to the wonderful members of VOCES8 who are going to take you through this session. Just before we get started, I wanted to give you a quick tour of the Digital Academy and tell you a little bit about Singing London. If this is your first session for Singing London, the idea is that as many people as possible all over the world are going to join us on the 21st of March for a big singing event that we've called Singing London. We're going to be at the VOCES8 Centre singing live. We'll also be doing a workshop a couple of hours before the concert takes place. The concert's going to happen at 7 p.m. UK time. And that is as part of our Live from London series. If you want to know any more about that and about all of the other events, then you can pop along to the website www.voces8.foundation and you can find all the information about all of the different concerts. And if you want to join us for Singing London, if you click on that link, you'll also be able to find everything you need. So there's a resource pack there for you, which has all the sheet music you'll need. There's also a link to our Digital Academy, and you can go there. You can enroll for free in the Singing London course, and then you can spend your time not only in this session, but as much of your other free time that you want to, you can spend just singing along with all the members of VOCES8 and practicing ahead of the big event. And just to give you a flavour of what the Academy looks like before handing over to the dream team here, I'm going to try and share my screen. Let's see if we can get this up. So I think VOCES8 members, can you see that?
Yes.
I think so. I'm in my courses currently, which is nice, isn't it? So when you get into the VOCES8 Digital Academy, you'll be able to see all the different courses you can sign up for. And I've gone into the Singing London one. And here I can see all of the different things that we're going to be working on. So actually one of them, for example, that I think might come up today is Kevin Allen's lovely piece that if you click on it, you'll be able to see the video that you can sing along to. Oh, there we are. So you can see all of VOCES8. You can join in with them. You can also have a look at the sheet music there, and you can practice your parts both by yourself, so you can isolate your individual voice part and practice just with that voice part. Or once you're feeling more confident with the music, you can also take out your individual voice part and put that in with all of the other parts. So there's lots of different ways that you can practice, and I think it's a lovely resource. And I want to thank Anne and all of our amazing team and some of our trustees, Sheridan in particular, who's been doing awesome work to help us get this all set up. So that is where you need to go, academy.voces8.foundation, but you can get there as well if you just go straight through the VOCES8 site. So I'm going to stop sharing now. And VOCES8 guys, how are we doing? Are we okay? Chris, are you having a nice day? Thumbs up, that's always a good sign.
Thank you.
Now, I don't quite know who's going to be leading off today. Is it you, and are you kicking off things?
Yeah, I think I'll lead off today, if that's all right.
Great. Well, if you're going to lead off, then I might say goodbye so that we get as much of your face on the screen as possible. So everyone else here, oh, there's well over 200 joined us now. That's great. Have a really nice session, and I will be practicing, I promise, guys, really hard to make sure I can sing all my notes as well. So good luck, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Oh, perfect. He's gone. It's exciting times.
At last.
Right. We're going to start with just a nice bit of warming up of our voices and a little bit of our faces as well. A little bit of shoulder stuff, I think, because if you're like me, you spend a lot of time crouched over a laptop at the minute to do your singing, which is not exactly ideal. So let's all just start with a nice little face massage. Just starting here, just on our cheekbones, running your fingers up and down there. Nice and pressured there, and then down the jaw. Blake massaging his beard very well. He's doing very incredible beard work. And then just running up and down, just up and down again. And then let's move down to our necks, and just a nice bit of massaging our necks and throats. Just try and loosen everything up a little bit. I want to make sure that we're feeling loose for this. Oh, right. And now let's a bit of shoulder stuff. Let's roll our shoulders forward. Oh, just keep doing that. See how much of a circle you can make. Up and down. A couple more of these. And then we'll just shift it to going back. Oh, if you're like me, you'll be feeling quite a lot of crunching at the minute as you go back, which is probably not great. Oh well. Oh, and now just breathing in. We're going to take a deep breath in, and we're going to, as we breathe out, just raise our shoulders up. And once more. And relaxing them up even further. I know relaxing up sounds like a weird concept, but we'll get somewhere with this, I promise you. One more time. And now that they're kind of almost up to our ears, we're going to take a nice high breath in the chest, so do as I do. And then we're just going to release that without releasing the breath. Bring the shoulders down and release the breath. You should feel that your chest is a lot more open now. Shoulders are nice and balanced. We should be in a nice stable position to do some singing. And we're just going to start off with just a bit of siren noises, just going up and down the normal range, just going. One more and just see how high and low you can get. Lovely. Now we're just going to keep with that siren noise and just run up some scales, but very, very gently and not worrying too much about particular notes. We're just going to slide up these scales. So, after me. keep going up now, and we're just going to open up to an ah at the top of the scale. So. Now an air. Now O. And finally, just an ooh. Lovely. Now we're just going to do a few more, just if we want to go a bit lower. I might not be able to get very low because I'm not bass, but we'll try. So we're just going to run those in reverse a little bit, just going down to the bottom and opening up as we get to the bottom. So after me. And one more with the ooh, and we'll see if I can actually do this. And there we have it. That is a tenor's approach to warming up as a bass, which is...
Did you by any chance sing a lot yesterday, Ewan?
There's a chance I might have sung a little bit yesterday. Who knows?
That's a tenor low G. That's impressive. Don't write that one, any of you aspiring composers out there.
Here's a good tip. Just warm up. Make sure that you're warming up at the same time as everyone else who's going to be warming up watching. It just helps you get lower. It's fine.
Definitely. So I think if it's all right, Ewan, I might take things over and continue our warm-up by doing a little bit of singing together. One of my favorite things is finding ways to break down this new barrier that we have in front of us, these computer screens, and actually sort of collaborate and make music in the moment. So I've done a little multi-track recording of one of my tunes, Big Ben, that you can also find on YouTube. And remember that at any point in this chat, if anybody wants to drop any questions or anything into the little chat window, you're welcome to do that, and we'll get to that at the end because Johnny's taking note of all the answers, and I'm sure he'll fire them away at the end. So to begin with, we're just going to imagine that we're in Victorian era London, and during this time, there's lots of steam things. Everything's steam powered. So we're just sort of hearing this steam wafting up from the sewers of London. Everywhere around us, there's this sound. And we're taking a stroll by Big Ben, and we can hear the clock sort of ticking in the background. So we get this ostinato rhythm that's sort of like clickety clackety shh, clickety clackety shh, clickety clackety shh, and that just repeats over and over again. So if all else fails, you can always just fall back on that. Okay, so we'll start with that, and we'll just add some parts in. Here's our rhythm. Clickety clackety shh, clickety clackety shh, clickety clackety shh. And then we're going to snap on beats 2 and 4, like this. This is our groove here. Next up, we're going to teach our alto part, or our high tenors, maybe. If you're a high tenor, you can sing this. It goes like this. Really tricky part there. Keep that going. And then our basses are up next. Take that over basses. Just learning by ear here. There's no score necessary. And then next up is that big bend melody that we all know in the sopranos. That sounds like this. Try that one on sopranos. That's the Westminster Quarters theme. You might hear that one in London. And next up, we're going to harmonize that in the tenor, with mostly parallel intervals, but one note's different. Have a listen. Ding dong, ding dong. Ding dong, ding dong. Ding dong, ding dong. Ding dong, ding dong. For you tenors. If you're not sure what to sing, you just happen to be a little bit of a diva, you can sing this next part. It's a little bit of a descant line over the top. It goes like this. Bring all those parts up. And then bring it back down again. Next up, Big Ben is going to toll. It's going to toll 4 times. You can pick any note in the major scale besides the major 7th or T on the word dong. It's going to toll 4 times. Here we go. Dong, 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 dong. And back into those parts we learned earlier. Next up, Big Ben's going to toll 8 times. Pick any note besides the major 7th. Dong, 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 dong. And back into those parts one more time. To close the song out, we're all going to join in on that Westminster Quarters melody. Ding dong, ding dong. Any octave is fine as well. Ding dong, ding dong. Everybody there. Ding dong, ding dong. Ding dong, ding dong. And last time through. Ding dong, ding dong. Just watch me. Ding dong, ding dong. Boom. That's a lot of fun. You can find the whole track of that on YouTube as well if you'd like that one, if you want to sing with us again. So I think we should get into some deep repertoire here. So maybe to start with, we'll start with some Liebe, some German lower voice repertoire. I think to kick that off, it'll be Johnny.
Yes, sorry, I was just copying over a question for later on.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so Blake, do you have the track with you?
I
Oh,
do.
by the way, By the way, everyone should see in the pinned comment in the comment section that I put a little link to where you can find all the scores for this project in one handy PDF file. So if you don't have them already, go and click on that link and download all of the scores. And we're looking at Liebe by Schubert, which is on page 12 of that.
Should I get the score up as well, Johnny?
Here? Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Cool.
So do you want to just maybe play through this?
Sure. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Do you have the video or is it just the audio?
It's just the audio.
Okay, cool.
But that's right. So this is our recording of it here. VOCES8. Our quartet.
Liebe rauscht der Silberbach, Liebe lehrt in sanfte Wahlen. Liebe rauscht der Silberbach, Liebe lehrt in sanfte Wahlen. Seele haucht sie in das klagenreiche Nachtigallen. Liebe, Liebe, lispelt nun auf der Laute der Natur. Liebe, Liebe, lispelt nun. Liebe, Liebe, lispelt nun. Weisheit mit dem Sonnenblick, Weisheit große Götten tritt zurück. Weisheit mit dem Sonnenblick, Weisheit große Göttin tritt zurück. Weiche vor der Liebe, weiche, weiche vor der Liebe. Nie erobern Fürsten, nie beugtest du ein Sklavenknie. Beug es jetzt der Liebe, beug es jetzt der Liebe.
Nice. And an addition prepared by Jonathan Pacey.
Yeah. I suppose it was, yeah. So that's a really nice song, really simple, but I think really effective little song there. And but there's, although it's simple sort of harmony-wise and simple how it sounds, there's actually quite a lot of complexity that you can get, and a lot of nuance you can get as you can with an awful lot of Schubert, Lieder, and other things of that sort of ilk. The first thing I'm going to perhaps think about is just the sound world that we're making here. And I'm just going to get up translation because my German isn't quite as good as some other people's in this
chat. Yeah.
Looking at you, Bianca.
Yeah.
Where is it? Oh, I managed to lose the. Oh, there we are. So we're talking here about love, as you might have guessed. I'm trying to find the right stanza here. 1 second. There we are. So love stirs the silver brook. Love teaches it to flow more softly. It breathes the soul into the cry of the rich laments of nightingales. Love, it is love alone that whispers in the sound of nature. So very pastoral, talk lots about nature and about the babbling brooks and soft flowing waters, and sort of equating that with the feeling of love. It's a really nice way that Schubert sets it. because he sets it in a compound meter, so it's 6/8, you have the bar is divided up into 2 beats, and then within those 2 beats you have a further subdivision into 3 quavers. So it ends up feeling very sort of lilting. Liebe rauscht der Silberbach. And so if you sort of imagine those 2 beats have a higher, there's 2 sort of overall beats in the bar have a hierarchy. You have the first beat is a strong beat, and the second beat is slightly less strong. But then also within the sort of subdivisions in the quaver subdivision, there's also a hierarchy where the first is slightly stronger than the other 2. So you end up with a sort of strong 1 and strong 2, sort of medium strong 2, but then a lot of shading away on each beat. Liebe rauscht der Silberbach, something like that. There's a risk that it can feel a bit seasick, so you don't want to get too far with that. But certainly it's as you hopefully would have heard in our performance of it, it has a sort of lilting feeling to it. I'm going to call on you, Blake, just for my next point, which is because you're singing the first tenor part in this, and it's a particularly challenging, I think, way of singing because it's such a high line. Do you think maybe you could, because you're the expert in this sort of thing, you could talk about how you're sort of floating that line up into those high notes?
Well, I think in terms of like pedagogy, Ewan's even more of an expert than me, certainly. But yeah, I think it's one of these things that you, as a tenor, you have to manage your head voice really, really well. And there are different ways to sing the line. Of course, it really hangs out in the stratosphere. We're basically a countertenor might sing. So you could, if you wanted to, sing it in a falsetto sound. But that's probably not the sound that Schubert himself was envisioning when he was writing the piece. So what I like to do is approach the sound through a yawn almost. And if we all kind of do that together, those of you sitting at home could just actually sit there in your chair and yawn a little bit, just going, just making that sort of sound. And the great thing about a yawn is that it doesn't start in falsetto usually. I mean, I don't know very many people that go, and yawn like that. Maybe my father, if he's on the chat, Rick Morgan. That's about it. And I think that it's a really natural sound because the larynx is so low and it really grounds it. So that's really the sound world that I'm in. If we do that one more time, one more yawn together. And the trick is not thinking about it as a singing noise, because once you do that, then the larynx does creep up. But when I sing this, I really try to get into that sound world of Liebe rauscht, rather than trying to put it too far forward or bring the larynx up to make the sound itself, because it's really a marathon. Even just the 2 minutes long the piece is, just hanging out in the stratosphere can be tiring for sure. So great point. Nice one.
Thank you, Blake. Yeah, absolutely. Good luck to all your first tenors out there. I don't really envy you that particular line, because the rest of us, well, Chris and I particularly, have a fairly easy time of it range-wise. Cool. Now, so this is a bit of a shopping list of points, mostly because I don't have that much time to look at it, and also there's so much to get in. So apologies for whipping through things, but I hope you can certainly watch this video back if you miss anything, and pick up even more little tidbits. So the next thing I was going to think about is our the way we sort of stack harmony, and this is a point that I'm sure that has been made or will be made when the whole group comes together amongst all 8 of us. But it really, really applies, and it's sort of most basic form in this piece because of the way that Schubert spaces chords. So if you look at, for example, just the very first chord of this piece, it's a nice sort of simple, really well-voiced D major chord. And I have a D, so I have the root of the chord. Then there's 2 voices, Chris and Ewan, both singing the 5th on an A above that, and then Blake hanging out on the 3rd right at the top. Well, we have a sort of hierarchy in how we're thinking about our function in a chord and what importance it plays in that chord. So I would be, as the root, I'd be the strongest there. The 5th then would be the 2nd strongest, and the third strongest of that. Now there's a slight difficulty here, of course, because you've got 2 people singing the 5th, which is not the most important. Well, it's not the most important note. Let's put it that way. So you really have to be careful if you're a first bass or a second tenor, that you're having to share the load between two of you, and because you're supposed to be less than the poor second basses, you're going to have to really get out of the way. Now that's obviously just looking at one single chord, one single point in the harmony, and it applies across the piece, and it changes every single chord. But just on its basic level, that's what we're looking at. If we're looking to tune and to balance chords, we want to make sure that they're really nice and what we call the pyramid of sound. So you have a sort of nice strong wide foundation, and then as it goes up to the top, it sort of gets a little bit thinner and a little bit sort of, so that the top voice is just sitting on the top there, and that's certainly true of Blake on that high part. So yes, just keep watching for that. And then as the piece goes through, you'll see that there's lots of different iterations of D major and other chords as well, but particularly D major, that have different voicings. And so each time it's quite easy for the second basses because we're almost always the root. But in other parts, you might find yourself on the third, where you used to be on the fifth, or vice versa. So so just to keep aware of your harmonic function, and where that puts you in the sort of hierarchy of importance at any particular time.
It can be really on that point, Johnny. It can be quite difficult, especially if you're in one of the middle parts, because there are just some great moments. Like for me, that bar 3 it's so satisfying to sing. It's right in the sort of middle hitting zone of the voice. It feels really, really great. And I think on that moment you can go for a little bit, but as you say, it's always a balance, and you don't want to restrict yourself to always thinking about where the chord here, and what am I doing on this particular microsecond as these notes pass, because there are some beautiful phrases that Schubert writes into each part, and I think that's part of the skill of his writing. Each part, even if it's a supporting part, a harmony part, feels like a wonderful melody. So it's about getting that balance between the vertical and the horizontal, isn't it?
Well, I think there's also moments where
preempted my next point, Chris.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, John.
Yeah. But that's very helpful. Sorry, Blake.
Well, that's right. I was just going to say, I think there's moments in the score as well that he chooses not to voice the harmony in its most true form. Like I'm looking at this bar right here. Was it bar 11, where this D minor chord has a lot of F going on, and then it kind of expands outward. But he could have put the fifth in. Like it would have sounded perfect if Ewan was on this fifth. But he wants to write a more beautiful, singable, lyrical line. So that's what's great about this music, I think.
He also doesn't want to write parallel fifths as well.
Well, yeah. This isn't power chord music, right? Rock guitar.
Yes, in fact, actually, the Chris, to go back to your point, well, the section that I'd picked out for that very point was bar 15 in the second tenor part. If you want to just go into that play, that descending chromatic line is really juicy, and you'll have heard Ewan bring that out in the recording, and quite rightly, because it's a really sort of juicy is the best way to describe it, really, a moment in the harmony, and that's something that those sorts of considerations can absolutely override at times a pure sort of harmonic thought process about the whole thing. So yeah, there's layers to this whole enterprise. Yeah.
Onion.
Particularly then when you have dynamic markings that come into it as well. So there's an awful lot of this piece that's marked pianissimo, which is I would say pianissimo generally, but particularly here, is lesser volume and more a sound. The composer could just write piano if he wanted you to sing quietly, but actually I think pianissimo means he wants you to sing softly, which is a slightly different spin on things. But then it's not always like that, because there's some really quite wide ranges of dynamics in this. In bar 10, for example, at the top of this page, you get a forte piano, and that's an awful long way pianissimo. And actually, something we probably could have made more of in our performance was that's it's a big dramatic moment. You have very fast moving notes, which is unusual for this for the rest of the piece. It's a point of interest, lots of chromaticism as well in Blake's part, and then the interrupted cadence as well, which is just all adding to the interest of that moment. And if I can remind myself exactly what that line means. So yeah, the breathes the soul into this. It's a cry. The cry of the sort of lament of the nightingales. You can hear the sort of the almost the pain of the crying of someone who's so lovesick in the way that he writes that bar. I think just really knowing what the words mean and then really using the way that the composer, who obviously does know what the words mean, has written it is really good at that point.
It's kind of milking the chromaticism in some ways to bring out that passion.
Absolutely, there's plenty of it to milk as well.
Yeah.
And then the very last thing before I throw it open to everyone else for the last couple of minutes on this piece, it's just being aware. We've talked vertically in terms of harmony. We've also talked horizontally in terms of our of the sort of singable lines, the lyric lines of the piece. I'm going to go back to the vertical and just thinking about something a bit more dry and technical, but keeping it nice and neat. So if we, Blake, you wouldn't mind going back to the top line of the piece, just to keep at the end of this first phrase, Liebe rauscht der Silberbach. Well, you see that that moment there, the tenors are going to want to take a breath, but they also then go on straight away into the next phrase, whereas the basses we have a rest, and so we have plenty of time to finish our note and then take a breath before the next phrase. Well, actually, if the basses do that and the tenors snatch their breath, the whole thing can sound quite messy because there'll be two or blick. There'll be lots of consonants going on, and actually, I think at this point we're going to want everyone to come off together. So as a second bass, I know that it's actually physically quite a long way away. The tenor part is quite a long way away from my part, but it's important to be looking up and down all the time to see that actually I might be wanting to listen to the tenors here and bringing my note to a close at the same point as they do. And then perhaps we can decide as a unit whether we want to add time there or to make that crotchet a bit shorter. We can decide that together, but I think we should, as basses, we should be aware that we're going to have to modify our note in some way to fit in with the tenors. And there's lots of examples of this throughout the rest of the piece. I mean, again, in bar 6, and there's other things later in the piece as well. So just being a bit, it's a team sport, this whole singing lark. So yeah. Was there anything else from anyone, any of the other three of you that you was jumping to mind while I go and check the chat?
I'll go first, I think, maybe, if that's all right. The only thing I would really comment on is the language, because I think you've covered everything else really well, Johnny. But the only thing, I think just the kind of lilting, loving tone of this, really, it suits the way that the words are. Liebe rauscht der Silberbach, Liebe lehrt in sanfte Wahlen. It's very nice, very flowing German. And I think especially with things like a rolled R or maybe the Silberbach, you don't want to make too much of the sounds that are not vocalized. So whereas in most things, if you were singing a piece of Lieder on your own, you would be told to make the most of every consonant to really make them a feature. I think just in service of the lilting nature of this, you're going more Liebe rauscht der Silberbach, Liebe lehrt. You're softening it to fit the character of the piece, I think, which can feel like maybe a bit of a concession of the language. But then if there's 4 of you singing it at the same time, everything will always come through very clearly, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's always funny talking to some choirs who really like tons and tons of consonants. I think as a group, we prefer not to overdo it. There's lots of groups that do things like Kyrie, things like that. And I think just the house style of VOCES8 is to make slightly understate it, because there's 8 people making the consonant. We don't need to have too much of it. But the same kind of thing applies here. I think we don't, especially for certain consonants that are very very German, you know, the Achlauts and Ichlauts. We don't want to put necessarily too much of them into the Bach, you know, there's no reason to prolong that too much. Chris, did you have anything? 'Cause I think we should do some singing as well.
Yeah, I think just thinking of the phrase units, you know, it's quite sort of standard phrase lengths, and just thinking of painting an arc over each, well, certainly 2 bars, but possibly even 4 bars, just to really get the line, so that we're always going for a destination, a harmonic destination, and also, you know, a sort of melodic destination.
Beautiful. Let's sing it one more time. Yeah.
Can I suggest, Blake, that we maybe just play it one more time and then have people either listen or sing along, and sort of think about what we've been talking about and how we're going to put that into practice?
Absolutely, yeah. Do you maybe just one verse, since they can go back and listen and play through both of them?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Let me just play the first chord. I don't have a piano with me, so I can't really play the pitches, but just so we all get our starting notes. So we're on D major here, so basses, da, da, for the baritones and tenor twos. Tenor ones are up here. Here we go.
Liebe rauscht der Silberbach, Liebe lehrt in sanfter Wahlen. Liebe rauscht der Silberbach, Liebe lehrt in sanfter Wahlen. Seele haucht sie in das Arg, klagenreiche Nachtigallen. Liebe, Liebe, lispelt nun auf der Laute der Natur. Liebe, Liebe des Natur. Liebe, Liebe des Natur.
Great. In the interest of time, I think we should move on to maybe Kevin's piece next. But if you do want to listen through to that first, so the second verse again, you can always go back in the video or join us on the Digital Academy, and you can listen to the whole thing there and actually watch us sing it as well. Cool. So I think Kevin Allen is next up.
Kevin Allen, yeah. This was a new piece on me. I hadn't heard this before we recorded it quite recently, but I think it's absolutely fantastic. Maybe just even looking at the score, even if you'd never heard the piece, you might notice there's only 3 parts. I think we're, especially in VOCES8, we're often used to singing in 4 parts minimum. So we've only got 3 parts here, and they're labeled primus, secundus, and tertius. So we're clearly in a style here, and Kevin is writing in a style that takes a lot of influence from the liturgical music of the Roman Catholic Church, especially the music of the Renaissance. We associate with composers like Palestrina in particular. So this is a really interesting piece because there's elements of that sort of old style, that stile antico, but also some modern twists, especially in the harmony later on in the piece. So with that in mind, and thinking about if you sing in a choir, when you pick up a piece of Renaissance music, maybe some Palestrina, or maybe something English, some Bird or Tallis, thinking of the things that your choir director would say to you, let's have a listen and a sing along to this piece.
Here's our recording of it. but then we have some chant that's meant to go back into the beginning of the piece, which we haven't done here. But it's also worth saying that Kevin originally wrote this piece, I think down a fourth or something from here. And it comes as a part of a booklet, which has tons of little miniature pieces like this that can be transposed all around. So we've moved it to a little slightly higher key so that we all can sing it. But originally it's written for either SSA or TTB. We've just moved it into a kind of middle ground so that we all could join in. A lot of fun.
Lovely. Yeah, thank you, Blake. Let's just read the English translation of the words, just so we know where we are. This is O Sacrum Convivium. We're talking about the Blessed Sacrament, the bread and the wine. So the text goes, O sacred banquet in which Christ is received, the memory of his passion is renewed, the mind is filled with grace, and a pledge of future glory to us is given. I think one of the things that is, when I looked at this piece first, I thought was fairly scary, is that the basses are quite a high tessitura, and not just that, but the sound has to be quite light. I think we would try in this sort of music to limit the amount of vibrato we put in the voice as well. So the whole aim should be for quite pure notes. This means I might defer to one of the maybe Ewan to talk about this in a little bit, but I think we want to be using quite a lot of what Blake talked about in Liebe, quite a lot of the head voice and that quite floaty, airy sound for quite a lot of the piece. I think if I was a director, I would look at it and think, well, there's only 3 parts, so we're unlikely, we're not going to have any huge big chordal moments that we can use to create an effect. So I think most of the effect in this piece has to come from the words and the way we treat the words. And obviously with this style of music, we talk about polyphony, we're talking about individual lines that obviously coincide to create harmony, but we want to make sure that we're thinking about our own individual line and how we can use the words for expression. So just this first phrase, O sacrum, O sacred, there's a really obvious trick we can do here. O sacrum. He's written it in the crescendo and then the diminuendo. We want to come in as quietly as we can, almost as if we, that sort of thing where you think you hear something and you're not quite sure if it started yet. The note creeps in, and then we've got this sacrum, and we can just, by ever so slightly lengthening the S, create a really nice effect that sort of, I think, shows the mystery of the thing that we're witnessing, the Sacrum Convivium. And then there's some other things. So in bar 7 is just one example, but there's a fantastic suspension between the bass part, or the lowest part, and the top part. You see the G sharp clashing against the A in the bottom part. So that's a moment where, if you're on the top part, you're going to go, O sacrum convivium. You're really going to lean into that. And if you're on the bass part, you're going to go, O sacrum convivium. So following the direction of the phrase to that moment in bar 7 where the harmony just crunches together. And also, as you heard, you can use the V in the word to make that emphasis. Then we've got In Quo Christus. That's a nice little place where we can also use the text In Quo Christus. He's even given it to us. He's written the tenuto. I don't think Palestrina would have written tenuto, Mark. So we can. That's a nice little gift from Kevin there. It's lovely. And then the other thing to talk about, if we just head to the second page, Blake. A place where this piece, departs into a more modern style. If we start getting all these naturals all over the place, this is a really beautiful place when you're talking about his passion. Obviously the passion of Christ's crucifixion. It darkens, and we've been in sharps, in sort of quite bright key at the beginning, and then we suddenly get these D naturals and these G naturals cropping up. So this is a moment to make sure that those notes are quite low, lower than you might think they need to be, so that we really turn the corner with the harmony. So in the bass part, from say bar 33, Nis eius, eius, that G natural needs to be quite low. And then, but then a few bars later, the sharps come back. So we need to think about the sharps being a bit higher than we think they might otherwise be, so that we lift the harmony again. And then one final thought is about legato, which I think is really important, especially in this last phrase. Look from 47. I mean, just without even looking at the individual notes, just looking at that on the page, it just looks like a big sort of brushstroke, doesn't it? Where you've got all the parts climbing, ascending up to a peak, and then coming back down again. So what we really want to do is take a good tank of air when we've got an ascending scale, and as we go up, as we get higher and higher, put a bit of pressure down there on the diaphragm to make sure we really got the gas to get up the hill and back down again. Those are just a few thoughts. I wonder if anyone else has anything they'd like to say about it.
Sure, yeah. One thing for just from a voicing perspective, I think, is that it is quite high for the basses. And actually what I do is I sing the secundus part here, the alto part, because it's also quite low for the altos. And we sometimes have these moments in VOCES8 where we get to join the other sections together and create kind of a super instrument sound. So Johnny's usually on bass. Let's just put it like that. He's pretty much always the foundation of the chords. Doesn't get to mess around very much in the top octaves. But Ewan and Chris sometimes will combine for like a tenor two, a barytenor sort of sound. Barney and I will sometimes combine for an haute contra or like a male alto sort of sound. And that's just a lot of fun to do. So that's kind of the sound world that we're getting into. And basically what that means is that as the parts start to climb, and as we get some of these high Fs in the or maybe just E's, but as it climbs up into the stratosphere in the bass part, in bar 49, for instance, Ewan can lead the sound for that moment, and Chris and Johnny might just sit back, maybe even use falsetto or something, a mechanism that makes it much, much lighter for them. And when it drops down into the meatier parts of the baritone range, they can lead the sound. The same thing happens for me, for instance, singing the middle part, even just for these C sharps, but there's moments as well that drop down below the staff, some of these Bs, and I think there's even some Gs down here, where I definitely lead the sound here in bar 35, for instance. So that's just a lot of fun to kind of collaborate with your a different section. And I think we can keep that in mind as we're singing through it, definitely. If you're a bass and getting up to those high E's, you don't have to be like, oh, you don't have to really crank it or anything like that. So just lighten the mechanism as you get higher.
I think it would be a good exercise for people to have on the Academy website. You can listen to the individual parts on their own, and it's all of the people singing those parts at the same time, but it's just the one part at once. So you'll hear Chris and Ewan and I all singing the tertius part together, and see if you can pick out our three individual voices and how we then treat what happens at different tessituras. Like on the last page, where it's going to start where it's quite a sort of me and Chris led sound, and then as it goes up, we're going to bail completely and let Ewan take it over onto the top E, and so that we're basically, well, I don't know about Chris, but I'm basically not singing on that top E, or as little as possible, and see if you can hear that sort of handover as we go up the scale, and then vice versa back down again.
Sort of like a gear change to continue the car going up a hill analogy. That's the moment where we change gear, and hopefully it's as smooth as possible.
Yeah,
exactly.
Chris does moonlight as a tenor every once in a while. I think for the Faure Requiem, if you're tuning into our live from London concerts, you'll get to see him singing some top Fs with the boys. Which is a lot of fun. Just a note from me as well. If you do want to sing tenor in that middle part, when you get to bar 40, what I do is I sing in bar 41, I sing the alto part as written, and then I jump up to the soprano rather than crank out a high B. I kind of sing with the sopranos down that line and then jump back in when it unifies on that F sharp. If you do want to sing the tenor part and don't feel like singing a high B, like I often usually don't want to do that. So let's have one more listen through. Ewan, do you have anything that you want to add before we have one more sing?
Not too much really. I was just in the chatting about the blend of the basses and tenors on the tertius line. It's really, for any tenor singing, the E's on the second page are really the point where you can add a little bit more front to the sound. Because as Chris said, you really want the kind of soft, straight sound for most of it. But really, because you're leading the sound there, it's a nice excuse to bring just a little bit more of the front into it. It's a very fun moment.
Yeah, let's have one more sing through it. I think you can get your starting out once the pitch comes in, because there's only one of them. So let's try again. Nicely done. I'm sure you sounded absolutely beautiful from home. Well, our time's basically up, but I wanted to run mine one more time, if that's all right with you three. I think you've been working on this tune by Phoebe Ryan, and I really don't want to spend too much time on it because I think maybe it's already been beaten to your ears to the point where it's a definite earworm at this point. But it's just a load of fun. And if you do go to the Digital Academy page, the Singing London packet, you should be able to find a video of me just running through 3 individual parts where you can sing for this. So it's not just melody. If you're a little bit bored by just singing the melody, there's actually 2 other parts which you can learn. Today, I think I'll just run through it. And one of the coolest things about this tune is that it has this 3/4 polyrhythm, the 3 against 4 rhythm that happens a lot. So if we do something like, if you want to just sing the words to the chorus, or even just speak the words to the chorus, which I think are in my packet, potentially. Here we go. Yeah. They're not in yours, but just for this one moment, I've put them in my own little packet here that I've made for myself. So we have this rhythm in the chorus that goes, I know that it's mine, no matter what I do. And if we're just tapping on ourselves anywhere you like and saying those words, mine, no matter what I do. It's basically the dotted eighth feel that is across the bar. But if we decide to put that dotted eighth feel onto our, snapping on our fingers or something, you get something like this. Mine, no matter what I. And if you can do this at the same time, see, I've messed it up. I can't speak and do it at the same time. It's like doing one of these things. But if you can do it at the same time, what you're doing is a 4/3 polyrhythm. There's 2 rhythms happening at once. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that's a really cool trick for this piece that is great for teaching kids this kids the groove and all that kind of stuff, is just teaching them this. But this is actually a really difficult musical concept that can be broken down into some simple language. So I'll just play my little track I've made of it here. And remember that when it gets to the first part of the pre-chorus, I'm holding on to other pieces of my heart's debris. That's your moment to really join in. We get the pre-chorus and the chorus. I'll just run it once through. hard to breathe. I gave up everything in a slow fall down to the floor. Life was escaping me. I couldn't find myself till it was all here we go. Lost, not anymore. I'm holding on to all the pieces of my heart's debris till it's time. I'll pull it together and fix myself eventually, and know it's mine. I found gold in the wreckage, put it on a necklace, keeping it 'cause I know that it's mine. I wear it like a message, so I don't forget it, keeping it 'cause I know that it's mine. Chorus. I know that it's mine no matter what I do. I know that it's mine whether I win or lose. And even though my heart needs to take its time, I know that it's mine. I know that it's mine. Nice. So just really quickly, we'll look at these three parts to just the chorus section. So we have the melody, which goes, I know that it's mine no matter what I do. I know that it's mine whether I win or lose. And even though my heart needs to take its time, I know that it's mine. I know that it's mine. That could be in any octave, typically done in the top voice. But if you want to sing it as a bass, you can definitely do that as well. The second part down, which once again doesn't have to be alto, it can be a tenor as well, mostly hangs out on the fifth. You begin on the fifth, and that goes, I know that it's, and you start, mine no matter what I do. I know that it's mine whether I win or lose. And even though my heart needs to take its time, I know that it's mine. I know that it's mine. So fifth is kind of your home base, but you get a nice little belty. My heart needs to take its time. You can really belt that one out. Once again, you can rewind this and listen again, or you can go to the DA page, the Digital Academy page, and actually just listen to this as to your heart's content. The bottom part starts on the third. So it goes, I know that it's mine no matter what I do. I know that it's mine whether I win or lose. And even though my heart needs to take its time, I know that it's mine. I know that it's mine, and ends in octaves with the melody. So if we just play the chorus, let's just see if we can hang out on those notes, even if you don't have it memorized at this point. Just see if you can sing fifth if you're middle part, and three. Just kind of follow the harmony. Here we go from the chorus. On a necklace, keeping it 'cause I know that it's mine. Oh, one more time through. Like a message, so I don't forget it. Keeping it 'cause I know that it's mine. Chorus. I know that it's mine no matter what I do. I know that it's mine whether I win or lose. And even though my heart needs to take its time, I know that it's mine. I know that it's mine. Nice. We'll visit that more in sectionals to come, I think, in the next week. I wanted to get to some questions as well. I think we all we're dying to answer some questions that Johnny has been collating over here. And then we'll peace out for the afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. Do put any more questions you have in the comments. I'm still keeping an eye on them. I'm just at the moment I'm seeing an awful lot of love for that arrangement, Blake.
Oh, cheers, guys.
So yeah, it's really fun. So there's a question about how we are coping with doing this sort of thing by Zoom, and to be synchronized in singing. The person who asked this was saying that they tried with their choir and they didn't have any success. Well, I can answer only on a scientific level, really, in that it's actually fundamentally physically impossible to sing together. You'd have to have something that's faster than the speed of light to actually be able to work together. So unfortunately, you're never quite going to get perfect sort of zero latency between your choir online. But there are ways that you can do good work without actually being in the same room together.
Yeah, it's a very challenging way to do it. I know there's some people working, I think it's in Canada. I read an article about some scientists that are working on an approach that might work with some kind of Zoom/audio movers, which is another software for high quality sound transfer. So they're kind of working on an approach for that, but for now we're very much stuck with Zoom. I think people watching might have seen a video of us singing Drop Drop Slow Tears over Zoom once, where we tried a verse of it and it did not go well.
Fail.
I think I made it about 4 words in before I started laughing and then did not stop laughing.
I think we tried at the very beginning of the very first lockdown. It was Eleanor's birthday, and we tried to sing a happy birthday over Zoom. It was an absolute fail. It was very funny.
Yeah.
Michael, one of our scholars, US scholars, has asked, how would we work with young basses and tenors to sing with that light mixed color needed in the Sacrum? Maybe Chris, you could take that one.
Maybe, yeah. I think a lot of it is certainly a way I get into it, and I'm like, flatter myself. I'm fairly young still, sort of. I think especially if you're a bass, your voice doesn't tend to sort of really mature until you're sort of in your 30s. So I think one of the things to do is to realize that the voice is still flexible. I mean, that's a key thing, because obviously sometimes teachers will want to push you on a certain path, and I think we always find that as long as you warm up and warm down in particular, the voice is very, very flexible. One of the things for me is really trying to access that sort of back of the head sound, and realizing that sound, there are different sort of directions that you can project sound. It's always one of my favorite exercises we do with a choir. We're working with a choir, when we're all in the same room, where we stand on the stage and we get them, if they're all facing us, we get them to sing at us and really point the sound at us, and you sort of get pushed back against the wall, and then try and see if they can send the sound the other way, basically out the back of their heads. And it's really interesting, just that image, just send the sound out of the back of your head, seems to have some effect in most people, and makes them do the right thing without having to learn a whole load of pedagogic that one stuff. So that's one way of thinking about it. I mean, I personally have always found that a teacher telling me how something should feel, or giving it a sort of image, is far more useful than sort of saying, and now your larynx should be in this position at this point. That sort of more scientific stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you do find something that's slightly more practical, the way that you learn, then I think Blake's idea of yawning, of coming at it from a yawn, is a really good idea as well. So thinking about dropping onto the note rather than going from the bottom and trying to sort of send it up from your boots, actually allowing your voice to sort of land on the runway of the note rather than try and kick it up from the depths.
Yeah.
Christian asks, how do you work on perfect balance and intonation? A lot is the answer. Blake's the intonation guru. Why don't you take that one?
I like talking about intonation. I don't know if I'm an intonation guru, but it's, yeah, I mean, what Johnny said earlier about the pyramid of sound applies not only on like a textural level, like the basses make this fluffy wide sound in the bass, and then as we move up the pyramid, it becomes more crystalline like a soprano. It applies also on a physical level. So I'm talking about the way that sound naturally rings and the way that we tune things. So the basses actually are often creating the fundament of the chord. They're creating the actual foundation, maybe the root. And then as we move up and sopranos get these extensions, usually they exist only as a shadow of those bottom parts. So if we use the harmonic series as our guide, which we try to do as much as possible in VOCES8, the basses are actually, they have all the DNA in their note for all the other notes on top to kind of just stack and fit in as a nice little shimmer on top. So really, we do a lot of listening to Johnny and listening to the overtones that he's creating. and then just kind of fit into them on top. That's really the most natural way to tune, and it doesn't always work because you run into lots of issues with things shift around. But if you're just tuning triads, that's definitely the way to go from our perspective, I think.
You can get really, really deep into this if you so
that
desire.
Would be another hour, so we're not going to do that today.
Yeah, you can do a whole a whole degree on that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Or a thesis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good. Just quickly to answer Robert, your question on There Is a River. Yeah, that is still happening, and that's we're just teaching that orally. We're not doing it. It's not written down, but it will be in the concert, and we're just going to come back to that on. I'm sure that the girls will when they do their thing, and we're going to come back to that as well for the concert. Great. I think we are pretty much there. So thanks everyone for watching and coming
thanks for
along.
tuning in. Thanks for making a rumble down under with us. Lots of fun. The lower voices.
We are, in terms of the lower voices, are back on. Let me just get my diary up. We're back on the 12th, so next week. And before then, you have the lovely upper voices with you on the 8th of March as well, all at 4 p.m. UK time. So come back here on the 8th and 12th of March at 4 p.m. Or whatever your relevant personal time zone is, and we'll see you again. So thanks so much for coming along, and see you next time.
Thanks for sitting with us, guys.
Thanks everyone. Bye.